Morning cafe. You do it the way we always do it every Friday. We have lots of entertainment lined up for you, but importantly, candid discussions as pertaining to equally what is happening right here in the country. So make sure that you keep it right here. Fredia is already on standby. Fredia, how are you?
Ko fiti.
Ko poa sana, eh?
Yep.
All right, it's good to have you.
Asante.
Mbona una psych?
Niko na psych.
Haikai kama psych hiyo.
Ni vile nimeamuka.
Aje na left ama na nini?
So mu catch up maybe 6:30 hapo.
Fredia, 1 hour later.
Yeah.
Hauja catch up. Wacha nione ni saa ngapi? Ni 6:20. 10 minutes tu. So tukupatie 10 minutes, you'll be fine, eh?
Nichangamushe.
Aya, sawa sawa. What's in store for us leo?
Leo tuko na random alafu tuna random alafu then producer wangu ananiambia nisipomchezea reggae. Mbona leo amefunga nini?
Amefunga locks zake huko.
Tunafaa tumuite aje?
My friend, sijui ni utamuita Rita Mali ama ni Sister Mali ama ni Sister Locks. Ndio eh?
Yeah.
So make sure umemchezea ati ni Empress. Oh, amesema anachagua kuitwa Empress.
Ndio sasa.
Sawa Madam Empress. I and I Rastaman, whatever that means.
A bigger parcel
hapo. So umchezee, yeah. So lots of reggae pia tutapata. Lots ama 2-3 tu for her.
2-3 selected.
Etana Richie Spies. She's very particular Bob Marley, and wewe usiitishe mingi sana kwa sababu wewe ndio producer pia. And yes, and that means then the lines are open for you to as well tell us what music you want Fredia to play for you. The hashtag is morning cafe at Linda_Lela at TV47KE. Leo unaona hiyo biji umekiwa kwa background inamaanisha ni reggae, so make sure umewachezea reggae, si ndio?
I wanna feel too high.
Mahiri ndio kwa wingi. So, well, make sure that you drop the comments and requests. Fredia is here to make sure that at least you get to enjoy the best of this. We also have a cake for you, actually 2. I always say every Friday we give you 2, courtesy of Valentine's Cake House. The cake courtesy of Valentine's Cake House. You know how we do it. The hashtag is morning cafe at Linda_Lela TV47KE. But importantly, we recommend that you use the SMS short code, which is 22047. That way, it's easier for me to grab your number and then I'll make a phone call to you and tell you why you are the person who gets the cake. So whatever you want to tell us this morning, I want to celebrate my mom, I want to celebrate myself, I just want a cake. It's as simple as that. Drop your comment, just be part of the show and you will get the chance to get this cake from Valentine's Cake House. So make sure that you keep it right here. We'll be going back to Fredia in a few, but importantly, we'll also be having our guests this morning. They're actually on standby already so that we can have this conversation pertaining to politics and what is happening right here. We'll be having dancers right here, ground shakers, the dance crew that will entertain you all the way to 10 a.m. We'll be having a guest artist in the name Manolo. So make sure that you keep it right here so at least we get to understand what he does, his genre, and how he's going to entertain us this morning. We'll also be having a guest artist again in the name Bing Wanjiko. I know you want to engage with her, so make sure that you keep it right here. And Afrophonist Derek Obara will be here. The Zangzaphones and all this, that mood of music. I mean, it's a full house of activities and entertainment for that matter. So make sure that you do not miss out on this love that we accord to you this morning. In studio, governance expert Kevin Osido on my farthest right. And he will be joining us briefly so that we look at the papers and above everything, the political scenario in the country. It's politics that shapes everything. Entertainment. And so even as we get entertained, we know very well that if politics is not involved, we are locked out. And so in this case, we have to accord that respect to it. Political analyst Josephat Kamanya is as well with us this morning for the very same. And so without further ado, I get to engage them as we look at the Daily Nation, the People Daily, and the Standard newspaper. The key stories captured therein, and above everything, I know they will not fail to speak about the political intolerance that was witnessed in Kisumu County, one that we continue to castigate, but raises a lot of concern as pertaining to the kind of leadership that we enjoy today and the discipline that we have, our leaders should have to make sure that we also do not get our youths engaged in this kind of animosity, especially at a time that we are headed at a heated political season. So gentlemen, it's an honor to have you this morning. Like I said, politics runs the world. It is just the other time that we could not enjoy enjoy entertainment courtesy of politics. I know they would say it's COVID-19, but it's the politicians that declared that we're not going to have that entertainment, and therefore we do not fail to speak of politics. I want us to start with this one that is captured on the front page of the Daily Nation. Osido, I don't know whether you have that, but it's about the youths, and how they say it is their time. And we have faces of them that have been very vocal. And the rise of the youth with big dreams of leadership. Youthful aspirants are eyeing positions in next year's elections, banking on support from their peers and hoping to break the jinx of this dismal performance in past contests. However, millions of youth who would have voted for the first time in 2022 squandered the chance to register as voters in the recently concluded enrollment. A story captured on page 2, 3, 4, and 5. Squandered, I don't know whether it's the word, but it is unfortunate. You can call it squander because, you know, it is instrumental for us to go and, you know, vote. It is very, very important. It's a democratic right. It's what dictates what the future holds. And, you know, according to IEBC, it is unfortunate to know that they expected to have about 7 million new voters. They were not able to get even half of that. And they say a majority are youths who were just hit 18. They have their identity cards, but they opted out. So to begin with you, Osido, before we come to Kamanya here, what do you make of these faces, first of all, that we have? And I'm sure you have probably met a majority of them, you know, in the corridors as you try and create space for the youths.
Indeed, thank you so much, Linda and team. Right, I have interacted with quite a number of these young men and women, and it's quite impressive to see them coming up to want to vie for the various positions of leadership in the upcoming elections. The most interesting thing about most of them is that they have been either student leaders at their former alma mater, or they are actively involved in their political party politicking processes. And so those are things which we are keen to look at. One of the things that we have not done very well is to mentor them. And so most of them are scavenging to want to, you know, make it by themselves. No one from the big league political parties is holding their hands to be able to walk through with them. And so one of the good things that they have done is to come out, because that's their constitutional and democratic right to want to run for office. By February next year, God willing, when let's say Firimbi Mepigwa, when IEBC will have you know, separated the wheat from the chaff, because right now we have as many aspirants. There are people who are aspiring. These ones are aspiring. When IEBC declares them as candidates, then we will be able to know who actually will get to the ballot. But even beyond that is also to face the political party primaries, where in this country some parties, once you beat the primaries, you are as good as already elected. And so I encourage them to go on and you know, motivate their people to register and vote. I do not believe that they have squandered, that the youth squandered their time and the opportunity to register, because you remember that registration is an ongoing process until when IEBC says it is over, and that is, I think, about a few days to the elections. So what IEBC did, which the youth did not take advantage of, in my view, was the enhanced mass voter registration process, which was purely, you know, days which are given to people to go out there. And IEBC, other than you walking into their offices, they come closer to where you are. Because what that means, Linda, is that once that grace period is over, if you want to change your vote, for example, the place where you vote, you have to go to the IEBC offices, as opposed to the process that just closed recently. So that means, therefore, that these aspirants will have to carve very encouraging and positive messages to be able to encourage the youth, because that number is so huge. And that has to be done, you know, no single aspirant or no single candidate can be able to achieve that. They have to find a way of working together across their party lines, so that they show that power and might of the numbers of youth in this country.
And the power and might of the numbers of youth is evident because, well, 18 to 35 are a third of Kenya's population and a majority of the voters that we have today. But then, do they make the decision at all?
I think good morning, viewers. Morning, Linda.
Morning.
It's a feel-good Friday, and we're happy to be here. I find it very exciting when the youth are coming out in large numbers. And yes, they have the voice, we have the numbers, because we're in this category as well. I think this is the right time for people to step up I'm highly encouraged when I see a lot of young people stepping up and confronting themselves, because everybody is talking about pro-change. I want to not just engage, but get involved. So it is it's going to take a lot of time, actually, because between now and Feb, maybe end of March, when we get the next ECVR, enhanced continuous voter registration, they need to have that concerted effort from across board, aspirants and all well-wishers, so we can have everybody register to vote. We need to remember that winning an election is about numbers. So we might be many as the young Turks, but if we don't register and show up to vote for the people of our choice, we are not going to realize the change that we want.
What is this about maturity that people speak of, especially when we're talking about the top seat? And when you look at someone at 33, at 32, you might be tempted to argue that maybe they're not mature enough for politics. And such has happened across Africa today. In every country, or maybe any country in Africa, a young Turk would come, well, however much of a formidable force they are. In most cases, they are always told, you know what, it's still early for you to take up the mantle. We would be surprised by the likes of, France president, or French president, that is Emmanuel Macron. Would be surprised by the likes of those ones that are manning, North Korea and all that. But it also comes from back then, that we also had our leaders getting into power when they're extremely young. But today, it's funny for a 33 to even declare that they would wish to go for presidency. And I know you might want to say it is not, but in most cases you're like, ngoja kidogo time yako. But I mean, the likes of DP have been told, ngoja mpaka mzee atoke. So what is this about political maturity that they always speak about when they see young Turks taking up, the challenge?
As you rightly say, a lot of these things have a background. And you realize that culture and history, they continuously influence what we're doing today. If you look at our history in terms of leadership, people who used to vie for the councillors and the MPs, they used to be retired teachers, doctors, people who had worked for so long, and then they were expected, now that you're done with your career, you can retire and join politics. It was form of a retirement scheme. And changing that, we need a paradigm shift, because there is newness in energy and ideas. If one is exhibiting the energy, the ideas, and the prowess, as well as the charisma to have people rally behind them and vote for them, we should not use age as a glass ceiling. These are the things we need to start breaking now, because again, remember, the political environment has been very hostile, especially here in Africa, and more so in Kenya. Young people will be told, vijana. The language is still there. Actually, if you listen to most of the presidential candidates, talk about vijana. Vijana is like, we are a second-class citizen. You just need to break that glass ceiling and let everybody know that you are equal. So long as you qualify, you meet the criteria, you can come up as a candidate and subject yourself to the people, regardless of your age. Today, you have producers and other icons in different industries who are equally young, and they are performing. So yeah.
Okay, well, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. All right, and wish them nothing but the best. We keenly are watching to see how the youths are going to take up this. What's important is the fact that they are now open. Oh, our friend Daniel Orogo is also here, finds himself on page 2. And Sam Omoyo Areba is equally a good friend of the Morning Cafe.
And you see, so, for instance, some of these people are already doing quite some insurmountable work. For instance, on the same page, you have my friend Joshua Kipto, who is the Speaker of Nandi County Assembly.
Cynthia Kerubo as well, 27, Kitutu Chache South also.
So already they're engaged in processes where they're able to gain some experience. And also, try and aim towards hitting and breaking that glass ceiling that more or less tends to veil off the people's perception around youth leadership. And the beauty about this, Linda, is that if you are able to profile yourself and show what you have done and where you are coming from, that journey that you have walked through, to be able to show and prove that you are that candidate that people can be able to elect, then I'm sure that in the next 5-10 years, Kenya will have that youthful leadership that we are, not youthful, but youth leadership that we have always been yearning for. And so these good ladies and gentlemen are already setting us up towards that kind
direction.
of a place.
They say the future is youth. All the best to them. So one day we wake up and, you know, the state has withdrew GSU officers who have been guarding Deputy President William Ruto's residence. And the next day we wake up to videos and photos moving rounds of him appreciating the ones that have been accorded to him. And it appears like it's all rosy. And like a month or two later, it's all silent. And before you know it, now officers guarding Ruto's home are arguing that they are being stabbed, or at least there's an argument that they are being stabbed. Well, the DP's Communications Secretary, David Mugonyi, has dismissed these particular claims and that the officers are being underfed. And then we ask ourselves, what is this when Mr. Wilson Jenga, Secretary Internal Security, argues the purpose of this letter, therefore, is to request that you reinstate the food rotations of the officers. Are we even going to discuss this one?
I don't think it's worth discussing.
Are we going to, honestly?
I don't think so. It's not even worth the attention. But I would want to attach myself to the official statement.
Okay.
And if that's the case, then as much as I'm a hustler nation, anchored heavily, if that's the case, we should correct that.
We should fix that.
Yeah, we should fix that.
All right.
I'm one person who just champions the right of security agencies, much as well as doctors and teachers. Everybody needs to be accorded the highest decorum as they serve the citizen. So whatever the case may be, I'm hoping we'll have that aligned to the truth.
Well said.
Yes.
All right.
You know, Linda, just to add on to what Josephat is saying,
Yeah.
the DP will have to stand taller than some of these things.
Right.
Remember, this is a gentleman who is already sitting in office as a deputy president. And he is aiming to be the president of this great republic.
Right.
Security is anchored in the office of the president. Whether there is National Police Service, whether there is Office of the Inspector General of Police that is supposed to deal with all these issues, bottom line is that they are part and parcel of your family. And Kenyans will be looking forward to seeing how do you treat people, including strangers who come to you to work.
Right.
Things like food. You cannot be talking about food, you know, that is given to officers that are attached to the residence and the office of the deputy president.
But I'm told there's plenty in current 24 hours. How, this is even strange to hear.
That's why I said I would want to refrain myself from commenting so much, because I know, as you say, food is not an issue that we should be discussing about security agencies. And again, this is the office of the deputy president. Let's away from politics. It's the office of the deputy president, the second highest office on this land.
Okay.
We should not have an issue of food, people not being fed.
Yeah.
Right.
We should be talking about how he is going to put together food policies to enhance Kenyan citizens to afford food, the kind of response mechanisms in Turkana and Elgeyo Marakwet, in Kilifi, Kwale, where we have Kenyans dying out of food, but not talking about askaris who are not being fed. Whether it is the role of the deputy president's office or the inspector general of police, food and the DP, the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya, is not. And the other day I saw Karen Residents Association writing a letter, whether it is true or false, about how much dirt is along Karen Road because of the number of people that are there, the degree of traffic that is already, that always is taking place, and people are getting inconvenienced. As the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya, there are things that I don't think, if I were to be in that position, or if I was, I would not want to be associated with, because it's about planning, it's about coordination, it's about making the lives of everybody, easy, so that everybody is feeling like, yes, I like this person as my deputy, and I would want to see him as my president.
Okay.
But as it is right now, he will also have to rise above some of these things and just call his house to order. It doesn't have to be somebody who does his security. The DP can take a phone call and call the RG and say, boss, what is happening? But if you want to put yourself in a corner and you look too important, too special, Kenyans are watching.
And let it reflect that Osido has said this morning.
Yes.
That he likes this person as his deputy.
And would love to for them to
No. That's not what I said. That is not what I said, Josephat, and you know that.
I also know that is not what he said.
And that is why I finished by saying Kenyans are watching. But remember that all the things that I've talked about that Kenyans are watching are not positive things.
Yeah,
they are very
yeah,
negative.
Those are All right, what is happening in the world of sports? Amina decides to crack the whip, or so to speak, and disbands, FKF. CS Amina receives FKF's inspection report on a dramatic day full of push and pull. Retired Judge Ringera to head caretaker committee for 6 months as probe into FKF finances continue. Mwenda will evidently say that he's still in charge, and so one would argue that the FKF numbers or days are numbered. I know this is more of sports, and probably we're not fond of speaking sports, but this is what involves us, as a country, and that's why it finds itself actually on the front page. I mean, just what bedevils the sports entity? Because, year over year, we've been talking about this entity, and it doesn't look rosy. Yet, it's one of the entities that brings money home, and glory for that matter.
I'll have you know that I sit at the FKF sub-county office in my Kiamba as a treasurer.
Right.
So, sports, not just food, but sports in general, are close to my heart. One, I feel very sad when I see this happening, because FKF is a federation that we really hope would uplift our sporting rating and all that. When we were first sending away Uncle Sam Nyamoya and to go to Mwendwa to take over office, we had high hopes. In my opinion, we have performed better as a country. Remember the days when we used to have Fabish? We would beat Nigeria, we would beat Ghana. Nowadays, we have more people and more teams at the grassroots level that are willing to participate in sports. But the structure remains very constraining for sports development, even away from resources, because you cannot put resources in an entity where there are no sufficient structures. So what I have found as a failure from my friend Nick, he's my friend, but we have to say the truth, is that he failed to restructure the structure that he found. And this has somehow, the buck has to stop with someone.
Yeah.
It is coming out to reflect as a failure on his end. We have had so many meetings, consultations, and a lot of dialogue has happened, but there hasn't been change. We cannot keep on complaining about resources. Resources do not make things happen. It is structures and having the right personnel in office that is going to change the status of our sports. If you look at athletics Kenya have somehow gotten organized. And nowadays, there's a bit of shift in terms of talent development and management of our athletes. But when it comes to football, it is the only sport that you have a lot of spectators, we have stadiums, but still, we are not able to promote the sport itself. You see, SportPesa came into the country, and they injected millions of money. Where did the money go? Now we have Betika. Where is the money going? Remember, this is a state-funded. It's a public-funded entity. Where does the money go? Because you're not able to see that translate into what we expect to see in terms of performance. We keep hiring foreign coaches. I have nothing against that, because if that's what's going to uplift our sports, there is no problem. But we keep firing them at the same speed that we hire them. So it's very wanting, and I don't think Nick is going to survive this. If he does, there's also an election coming up. It's a 4-year term.
It's a 4-year term, yes.
And I'm very saddened by this, because the people who suffer most is not him or his vice.
Yeah.
It is the youth. People are getting demoralized.
That's true.
And we need football. The football changes things. It's one of the elements that drives social change. Look at Brazil, Argentina. Some countries are poorer than us, but they perform better.
That's true.
And you see, we have talent. We have people who are playing in other foreign countries who have just come up in the last 5-10 years locally. So it's not that we don't have talent. We just need to harness our structure, our organization, and get the right people. I would call upon my friend Nick Mwendo. If he feels the pressure is too much, get out of the kitchen. There is no shame in that.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, Kevin.
And on the other hand, I hope it's not witch hunting from Amina.
All right. Well, we hope it is not.
But let's be factual.
Let's be factual
in all this engagement. Yes.
Okay, Kevin.
Quite a sad day
Yep.
for the sporting fraternity in Kenya, particularly the leadership, and that is also furthered by the kind of frustrations that we see in the many young people who want to engage in sporting activity, particularly soccer and football. And Linda, we all know that this is one thing that really binds us together. You know, whether it's soccer, it's athletics, all these sporting activities. Now, for a youth out there, you don't need FKF to make it in football or in any game. You do not need these structures. But the beauty about it is that Kenyans have agreed, like in the global village, that we need structures. And one of those structures, therefore, is FKF. The reason why Mwendwa was voted into office, because of the first topic that we spoke about, youth and leadership. And people felt that moving from Mheshimiwa Sam Nyamweya, where there were also very many challenges, you know, including even internal wrangles and just inability of the structure to manage and engage itself. Because how FKF is organized is that you have the leagues taking place at the grassroots, they elect their leaders, then those delegates move at the national level and elect the president. Is that not so? So people feel excited and they mobilize at that local level for the sake of something progressive and prospective so that they are able to benefit. But as I said, the youth down somewhere, including where Mwendwa came from to be elected president or chairman, somewhere in Eastlands, they don't need this structure, you know. So when you've already been put in office to be able to be the person who is the link between government, because this is a government agency, between government and the people, listen to the people. As it is right now, Nick Mwendwa is a leader who is under siege because he will not go to the people who elected him because he doesn't listen. One time I was somewhere out of the country, and so some gentlemen thought I was Nick Mwendwa because they say we look alike. and so they approached me at Dubai International Airport and said, Mr. President, how are you? And I was like, yeah, first I was like, what president? What president is So we sat down and they were like, yeah, you know this soccer, what. This is more than two years ago. Yeah. When I came back to Kenya, I called Nick because we once in a while chat. And I told him, boss, there are problems because apparently people want to reach out to you, but you don't listen and you don't respond, you don't speak to people, and what is happening? So we organized a meeting and we met at Silver Springs. And I told him, I'm not a fan of these things you people are doing, but my primary focus is on leadership and governance. You are a president of a structure that is supposed to exercise leadership and governance. One, listen to your people. Number two, engage with government. Because for you to get resources to also motivate and facilitate these young people, you can't do it using money from your pocket. Yeah. Unfortunately, the long and short of it is that there were investigations that also involved government agencies, and issues were found for FKF and the leadership to be wanting. And that is what Mheshimiwa Amina Mohamed did. Unfortunately, the caretaker committee is Aaron Ringera. Now, that is not youth, you know. What sport does the former, CJ play? On what premise? So I think that is also one of the challenges of youth and leadership that we see, Linda, that in the event that the youth fail to show leadership, then government and the people can be able to decide on what they will be able to do. So on this one, I am with the government on the actions that have been taken. I am hoping that the kind of recommendations that the caretaker committee is going to come up with will be put into force and into action so that we're able to safeguard institutions of governance and leadership for sports, and that this is also going to be a show of example. Remember, sports, we have former CSS serving, he bailed himself out, out of these Brazil, cases. So this is a sector that has really suffered a lot. And so depending on what government is going to do with FKF, it is supposed to be a ringing bell that will also inform engagements on how we deal with other youth-friendly services around this country.
Well put, and so we quickly follow up on this. This even as Wonderwell, one would want to call him again a man of line lives because it's not been all rosy, but he always is there to fight, not another day, but he's always there to fight for that very actual day to make sure that he survives. And so we'll be having our sports team compiling this so that we get more updates and what then the way forward would be. Judges row, CJ appealed High Court ruling, and CJ Koome says she is dissatisfied with the judgment and decree of the High Court, this pertaining to the appointment of the 6 judges. She intends to challenge orders that require her and the Judicial Service Commission to take necessary steps of swearing in the 6 judges rejected by President Uhuru Kenyatta on alleged integrity issues. We are almost getting confused with what is happening here between the courts and the executive. One day they are friends, the next day they are not. Most of the days they're actually not friends. And they're the very same people that dictate the most crucial matters in the country and what way forward. So on this one, you know, for the longest of time, we have been put somewhere in the balance, and it appears like it's going to be even worse by the day.
As you say, it's sort of becoming comical, although it's a very serious issue. The executive and judiciary, they have this love and hate relationship. I think when it favors either, they're good. When it doesn't, then they're at loggerheads. What I wish to see is a situation whereby we work on merit. And every organ assumes its functions, effectively so, and let the other one function as they independently. Where they have to collaborate, let it happen. Sometimes it seems like it is just a flexing of muscles. Someone wants to just express their supremacy over the other, and that's unfortunate. Because remember, these 6 judges, they have a duty to execute to Kenyans. We should remember that it's not just for fun, it's not just for the sake of either praising or shaming the president or the CJ coming in, this is what I want, this is how it should be. We know everybody is coming from a different school of thought. If there are cases of issues of integrity, let them be dealt with. Actually beforehand. We should have a screening assessment system that prevents us from having final candidates that are being almost sworn into office, and then we start saying there are integral issues. Then what was the purpose of vetting? Because these 6 judges did not just appear to be shortlisted. So there needs to be harmony. This is what I would call upon all the functions of the government that we have, from the legislature as well, the judiciary and the executive. Let us harmonize our systems, because we are here to serve Kenyans. The more time we waste, the more we deny ourselves, or we are denied services by the same government. So I would call for harmony, because we need each and every organ working and functioning accordingly to serve the interest of us all as Kenyans.
And now it is the CJ who's appealing. Interesting.
Yeah. She's gone to court.
Yes.
And that's the beauty of these processes, that you have different levels of, you know, we have arms of government, executive, legislature, and then the judiciary, and within each of them, including the judiciary, you have different levels. So whether you are the Chief Justice or not, you cannot do what we call extra vires, you know, ultra vires powers. You have to go and follow the process. And that is because this is a matter that is already in court. So you can't say, I'm the Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya, I will just do things the way I think I'm supposed to do them. So this is also beautiful, because then we are able to see what we call respect to the rule of law, you know, where you have a lot of power, but you realize that there are set mechanisms and instruments that protect that particular power, which the executive, Linda, has not been very able to do, has not done very well. And that is evidenced in the number of court cases that we have seen being thrown out, including the appointment of the cabinet administrative secretaries, a number of issues to do with our security amendment laws, and quite a lot. So we look forward to not to go into the details of why this is happening, because I know that we have talked about this a number of times. But the beauty of it is that we will be able to see the pronouncements of the court in terms of challenges and of course conflicts that erupt between the different arms of government, particularly the executive and the judiciary. Remember, on this one, the judiciary stands to lose, but that's not how we look at it, because all these arms of government, you know, engage, we say is independent and interdependent, which means that, for instance, the judiciary requires the executive through treasury to support some of its programs, you know, where they are supposed to get financial resources and a budget to be able to do certain amounts of works. But also remember that the judiciary also relies, or rather the executive also relies on the judiciary to make pronouncements on some of its recommendations on running government. And that is how come even the Attorney General is a member of the Judicial Service Commission, which is where really the rubber meets the road. Because when it comes to the issues around these 34 judges, how come the Attorney General was silent, as at the point in time when all this vetting was going on. What did he say on behalf of the executive and actually on behalf of the president when it comes to some of the integrity issues that His Excellency the President has raised about some of these judges? So a lot of this is really important for us to deal with, but also remember that we have other state agencies that are supposed to undertake assignments, including investigations. So you bring in DCI. When it comes to corruption cases, you bring in EACC. What does that really mean when it comes to, dealing with one arm of government speaking to the other? But I'm glad that the CJ has gone to court, and so we look forward to seeing how this particularly foils out. Remember that some of the things, just in finishing, Linda, are not in the Constitution. For example, the fact that judges have to go to State House to be sworn in. It is not anywhere. But we have set that particular precedence, because always we see them going to State House and standing before the president, and that's really because that's the symbol of authority and of power. But now, what we are seeing happening here is that, the judiciary is saying, we don't have to go to the president. The CJ can actually appoint these judges. But the president says it's more or less like a subversion of power. Where does that leave the executive? So it's important that the CJ has gone to court so that we therefore understand the clear meaning and interpretation of some of these occurrences in our country. But lastly also, the president will one day be a civilian. If you have a matter in court, how will you want that dealt with?
That's true. That's true. Well put. And I hate to say this, but as they would say, he would go down in history as one who's really managed to go against the laws, or maybe has been in contempt of court for the longest of time. Zuma the other day, I don't know how it's gone with Zuma, by the way. We might need to check on that. But even as we speak about South Africa, well, he was in jail for contempt of court, and so it will be interesting to watch. De Klerk, FW, South Africa's last white president who broke an end to apartheid, dies at 85. Historic figure, for so to speak, as we celebrate his life. And in most cases with leaders, you celebrate their flaws. They had their fair share of flaws, but equally we acknowledge their contribution. And we all understand that historically, looking at South Africa, every African country in most cases would want to, just to understand their political scene, most importantly relate to what we have. In as much as there was apartheid up until I don't know how late, it appears like we borrow so much from South Africa. One would want to ask, is it because there's been the existence of the whites for the longest of time, and maybe that's why they appear to enjoy more of even development in comparison to what it is with the other African countries? If we speak about, the most developed African countries, then South Africa takes number one. Just for it.
Yeah, well, De Klerk passes on. In spite of his undoings in the past, I also want to acknowledge his contribution in trying to end apartheid, because that was really quite a dark period for us as Africans. Remember, as Africans, we are one, and Africa is our business. Development-wise, yes, South Africa rates highly. I would not just attribute that to the existence, as you say.
I asked, I did not declare it was the case.
Because South Africans are a very hard-working lot.
Are they?
Yes.
All right.
Also remember, it is a very resourceful country.
Yes.
Gold, diamond.
Yeah.
This is what has developed their country.
That's true.
It just didn't happen. You need to have resources, you need to have people. Of course, again, the system still remains flawed, because, there is the charter that has not yet been implemented.
Right.
So South Africans are not yet free. And that's why you see our friend Jacob Julius Malema still agitating for the implementation of the charter, because you still have a lot of native South Africans who are suffering, who are still living in bondage, and they are also harsh existence of apartheid. There is a lot of profiling. I've experienced that. South Africa is like a second home. So I have a lot of engagement and connections down there, and I keep tabs on the social happenings. So there's a lot to learn. Again, also I need to appreciate that they got into the independence in the 90s. So back then, South Africa was being developed as an annex of Netherlands. So, we have a whole race the Afrikaans,
Yeah.
who is a breed of Africans and the Dutch, the Boers, the farmers. So there is a lot of rich history there, and it definitely has transformed how we see South Africa. Actually, they say there is South Africa and the rest of Africa. You go to South Africa, yeah, it's quite ironical. You see a significant change on the development setup. One of the things I admire is they have this controlled development scheme.
Right.
And I hope that one day as Kenyans we're going to at least start borrowing such, because it helps to contain and control our resources and also provide resources across board for all citizens anywhere in the country. So there is a lot to learn from them, but also they also have a lot to learn from us, because remember the other day we had xenophobia.
Yes, and actually that's the reason why I am not in disagreement that they're not hardworking, but I mean the xenophobic attacks, you know, exposed lots of things, and I mean the arguments were that, you know, they are attacking fellow Africans because these people go there to work so hard, you know, and to them they're always there, and it appears like they're taking their space, and so, and I mean, for if you've traveled there, you also understand, and the aspect of crime and the fact that a majority of them would also just want to probably lazy around, but then times are changing, or so to speak. I don't want to be, I don't want to appear as though
you're right. Your observations are correct. However, in their defense, in my fellow brethren South African defense, these attacks were schemed.
Okay.
Because remember, after that, just recently, we had attacks on Indians. The entire KwaZulu-Natal province, KZN, the Indians were being, and it's only 1 million of them. There are not more than 2 million Indians in South Africa. So you'd ask yourself, what do you gain by kicking out 2 million when you have other races, so to say, that are more? Because 10% of the South African economy is controlled by non-African South Africans. So these attacks, sometimes you need to understand the aspect of war and civil war.
Okay.
They are instigated to create instability towards a certain direction. You know, needless to go into details. But this instability, they don't just happen. We cannot just wake up one day and say, we are going to attack the likes of Kamanya.
That's true.
Something has to be driving that. So there is a lot to learn. There are a lot of undertones, but I just hope that we maintain peace.
That's true.
And also want to congratulate our president, because nowadays you can get yourself a long-term visa to South Africa.
To South Africa.
And soon you'll be applying that online. You will not need to go to the embassy.
It was hectic, you know. They used to say that when you were traveling to South Africa, like you're traveling to a different continent, and you know the papers that you asked for, and then you ask yourself, what is this conversation about African integrity in the first place?
Yes.
Integration.
One of the things that we will have to deal with as Africans is to be Africans. And that means that we have to transcend certain challenges that we have. And one of those is indeed in interboundary communications and, of course, travels. So that, for instance, how is it that South Africans don't need a visa to come to Kenya and Kenyans need a visa to go to South Africa?
Right.
You go to Thailand, Bangkok, and I was there for a few years. South Africans don't have to study any other English language to teach in those Asian schools. But Kenyans and other Africans have to go to English schools and learn English. I'm speaking English, really, you know.
But you have to learn.
But I have to go back and learn. Why? Because maybe they think we don't have whites around here. We have so many of them, or that we do not have Kenyan Osidos who are white. I don't think I am very black or dark, you know. So what does that really mean? But that really is about leadership, Linda. What is it that South Africans did so well that we have not done together with the other African countries? And so what kind of lessons can we be able to learn? How is it possible that, for instance, Tanzania is a member of SADC, you know, South African Development Economic Council, community, and Kenya is not. But Tanzania took a very long time to join EAC until just recently, you know. These are things which really bother some of us who want to be global leaders, to be able to ensure that some of these international boundaries are actually dealt with. But the long and short of it is that South Africa has a very long struggle, you know, of independence. And one of the things that I remember the late de Klerk with is the fact that he actually accepted to share the Nobel Prize for 1993 with Mzee Nelson Mandela. And if you look at how that was managed, until when it happened, including the first elections where Mandela was declared president and de Klerk deputy president. The challenge, Linda, is that the leadership that came after these two people have not done enough to expand this space for the people of South Africa. And that is why, for instance, you go to Joburg, Pretoria, you have roundabouts where you are driving and there are traffic lights. And you get to Cape Town, there are no roundabouts, there are no traffic lights. You use your head to drive. You get into a junction and you know who has the right of way. Not like in Nairobi where really the lights are green and people have stopped and people are hooting at each other. The lights are red. People are like, why are you stopping? So those are some of the things that South Africans, in their being white and black, for instance, if I could use those words, have done so well that other African countries, particularly Kenya, will have to deal with. But it borders largely on the attitude of the citizens. We can be able to change, including how the leadership responds and performs to some of our issues. And that attitude is out of a foundation that was put by people, for example, Frederick W. de Klerk, so that they were able to look at the challenges that Africans have gone through. The fact that the late Nelson Mandela was able to stand tall and say, this apartheid business has to stop. Remember, even as late as, is it late last year or just July this year, there was still a very big conversation around apartheid and whether it is a crime of humanity or not, despite the fact that in early 90s, the UN already declared apartheid as a crime of humanity. But de Klerk continued to say it is not, because that is how the whites perpetuated some of these challenges against blacks or against Africans. So how current presidents, including the current president, President Cyril Ramaphosa, will take, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the South African government
will
handles this kind of funeral ceremony and all these things, because those are going to respond to some of the questions that you're asking about, xenophobic attacks, the fact that you have gaps between the blacks and whites in South Africa, and this continues to be perpetuated. How the leadership responds to some of these things and provides a uniform, a platform for everyone is something that does not just need to happen in black and white. It is an attitude that has to be taught, it has to be lived, and it has to be continually reminded. The people have to be continually reminded about their past, where they are and what the leadership is envisioning. And so that really is upon the leadership of South Africa to guide African countries. And the fact that you say that South Africa is different, it's not seen as, like people look at other African countries. Cyril Ramaphosa and his brothers, including Uhuru Kenyatta, will have to therefore provide that direction, including Nigeria, Ghana, and the others, on how some of these challenges that African countries are going through are going to enhance our prosperity and also our future.
Well put, and of course, may his soul rest in eternal peace. And like you rightfully put it, we are keenly waiting to see how then this is going to be handled. Now that you just mentioned that, I think we'll all be on alert for the same. Former Kenya Power bosses, fresh audits. Well, Kenya Power is another story that, we open a Pandora's box. Let's talk politics for a moment. On the Standard newspaper, the biggest story on matters politics and captured on page 8 is on Deputy President William Ruto, who says send Uhuru and Raila home next year. DP accuses the two leaders of working hard to stop him from identifying with the poor and frustrating his presidential bid. On the front page of the People Daily, it speaks of the handouts conversation and trouble stocks Ruto hustler cash handouts and controversy where DP's generous donations have endeared him to poor Kenyans across the country. The handouts are fast becoming a source of conflict and may return to haunt him. A story captured on page 3. And William Ruto says police have confirmed that those who stoned Ruto were part of the rented crowd who did not get a share of the money in his out in Kondele. And of course, this is interesting to watch. Is this said by him really? I doubt. But then again, the conversation is here, and this brings us to the fact of what played out in Kondele. One, we are not clear on what exactly handouts are and what exactly, philanthropy is all about. The men of Ruto will tell you this is philanthropy. If your presidential hopefuls are not generous enough to dish out what or share what it is that they have, then please do not accuse their own of dishing out handouts. What also has been looked at as one of the reasons as to what animosity played out in Kondele. I mean, we are almost getting confused. And if we're talking about handouts, we understand that the law condemns that, and it is not proper in law for that to be happening. But then it is evidently not clear.
Well, the men of Ruto that we are,
yes,
we don't refer to what we do as handout or philanthropy. It is empowerment.
Please be careful, because I had someone here, a man of Ruto or a woman of Ruto yesterday, who argued that that was more or less like philanthropy.
All right.
So I hope you people get to a meeting and discuss and, and have
agree on what it is.
Yes, an agreement on what exactly this is.
I was leaning towards more legality.
Okay.
Because again, semantics, whatever you want to call it. But the point is, what we do is empowerment. And what the chief hustler continues to do is to empower various groupings within the country that approach him and request for his support.
Right.
I have been in these rallies, hundreds, scores of them, so to say. And there has not been, actually what we are witnessing, like what happened in Kondele, and there was a bit of that in, was it Migori again? These are isolated cases.
Okay. And
we should not at all, regardless whether it's happening in Chief Hustler's campaign rallies or any other presidential candidate, not just presidential, even an MCA as candidate, there should not be fracas. We should not tolerate that. We need to condemn that in the strongest term possible. Because we cannot be saying that we are running a peaceful revolution when we have our counterparts and our opponents facing each other. Because they may not heckle myself as a candidate, as Kamanya, but they might heckle, Kevin Osido. I will not tolerate that, because the next time he may get hurt, or it could be somebody that is dear to myself. Again, it's about upholding peace and harmony. This is a democratic process. I keep saying this. Rallies will continue to happen up to until around August, when we're just about to vote, until IBC calls them off. If you're not willing to attend a rally and listen to the person who has convened that meeting, please stay home. If you do attend the rally, listen and then go home as well, because no one is being coerced to attend these rallies. People come out in large numbers who support the chief hustler. They listen to his message. Others are not convinced, but when they listen to what he's saying and what he's doing, they get convinced. The same case continues to happen to the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. We have welcomed him in Mount Kenya. I have known of times when he's coming, and the ground we have tried to pacify and make sure that when he comes, he addresses the people. Those who want to show up, they'll show up and listen and then go home. It is highly and very unfortunate that some people are finding excitement and trying to build up a story about the empowerment program. The chief hustler does not just dish out money and says, well, the likes of Linda and groups, you have this 1 million. These are organized groups and circles that he meets before and after. And the money is not even given in public. You cannot give 5 million to a group of people amidst hundreds of people. You're going to cause chaos. That's not how it happens. So these were isolated cases. Yes, mobilizations need to be well harmonized across all campaign teams. That much I agree. But the chief hustler remains committed to empowering the Kenyans, the citizens, while he's still the deputy during this campaign and when we make the next government. Yes.
All right. My question then, Osido, would be, when it happens almost immediately, you see these leaders trading barbs, you see these leaders pointing fingers without due diligence. I don't know whether they have intelligence in any way in regards to this, that almost instantly the DP will say, ambieni mtu akitendawili this and this and that. Almost like, instantly. And then you ask yourself, does it have to go to such levels? And in all genuineness, what does it speak when you point a finger directly without, getting a proper information from the ground?
Linda, I like sharing a platform with Josephat because he's one of those older people who is very respectful as well. We disagree.
Yes.
but very respectful. He doesn't shout, he doesn't interject. He's not emotional.
Okay.
Because what he is saying, he also knows very well that as a deputy president, you cannot be going around distributing money, handouts, aimlessly. You are the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya, who understands policies, legislations that are supposed to safeguard the least in the community, including small and micro enterprises and all that. I thought I needed to talk to that. Mobilization and throwing words here and there and responding effectively to what each other says. I think the deputy president is looking for sympathy from Luo Nyanza or the wider Nyanza region, and probably Kina Josephat have told him that the best way to get this sympathy is to paint the former prime minister in negative light. Raila Odinga was not in Kisumu. At least I was in Kisumu a few days before the DP arrived, meeting with aspirants and doing our things, then went to a funeral to send our last respects to one of the late bishops, of the Anglican Church. To expressly indicate against intelligence, because you also spoke about the fact that do they have intelligence or not. The police have indicated that they shared intelligence with the deputy president and told him that if you are coming around, this is what we portend that could happen. So can you organize yourself to try and avoid places like Kondele and all that? Not to say that as somebody who is running for office to be president, there are places in this country that you cannot go to, because you are going to be the president of everybody if you ever ascend to be that kind of a president. But it's to say, how do you also engage with agencies of government? Because the deputy president is a member of the National Security Council of the Republic of Kenya that really receives a lot of intelligence. In Kisumu, there is, like in all other counties, what we call the County Security Intelligence Committee, the CSIC, that is led by the county commissioner. You have the police commander there, you have CID, you have intelligence, NIS. They all sit together and share information. This information was shared with the deputy president's team. Further to that, Linda, also remember that you have your own mobilizers who are UDA or these hustlers around where the deputy president is going to. Yes. These are people who are in charge of mobilization.
Right.
So whoever carries a stone, they know them. Whoever is threatening, like if you don't give us something, we will stone you.
Okay.
They know who is threatening and what is their role in sharing that intelligence with the team of the deputy president, so that instead of the DP standing there and saying, ambieni huyu mtu wa vitendawili, tell the person, Kevin Osido, I was told that you're the one who incited people to throw stones. I am asking the police commander of Kisumu to ensure that you are arrested. Investigations are, conducted exactly. And if you are found culpable and accountable, arrested. And then you are put in there for 6 months, 2 years, 15 years. There is no young person in any part of this country who will dare take a stone and throw. Because they will say, hey, Kevin was arrested and he stayed there for 23 years.
Right.
No wife. My daughter Natalie will not be there to see me. They'll be like, akienda shuleni anaambiwa, your father is in jail for stoning the DP. There is nobody who will want to follow that suit. But in this country, impunity is reigning. Hate speech, people just bubbling these things left, right, and center. Police does nothing. No one is arrested. People are charged. They pay money to the courts, bail or whatever. They are released. The matters are going on for many years. So the youth are like, sinitako arrested na nitarudi nyumbani.
But Osido, let's talk about that intelligence aspect and the fact that yes, this information, as they would say or as they would purport, because at some point again we've also seen some people countering the same, to have told the DP. What is the most noble thing coming from the security officers, or so to speak, or the police, in terms of making this information or dishing out this information? I mean, if the DP feels like he should go and speak to the people of Kondele, if you have intelligence that there's a few who would wish to cause chaos or something of the sort, what is the aspect? Where is the aspect of intercepting this? Intercepting them, and probably telling them, we have intelligence that this is what you're planning. Let's warn you in advance. Do not attempt to do that. As opposed to telling the DP, do not go there. I mean...
In my opinion,
yes.
I think we should not tolerate the notion that there are some pockets of this country where a certain person should not traverse
to these places because
on whatever mission,
yes,
political, economical. We should not tolerate that notion. We are one nation, one Kenya, and we are all free Kenyans. So that notion needs to be scrapped off. The issue of security and insecurity needs to be addressed perpendicularly, regardless of whom it concerns.
Yeah.
Whether it is the deputy or the right honorable or the yet to declare Mukisa Kitui or whoever else.
He has declared one. Well, all right, we're waiting for his
whichever
party.
person we are talking about, there needs to be accorded the security and safety.
Right.
It is very unfortunate that this conversation has narrowed down now to the right honorable and the chief hustler. We are not talking about the Kenyans who possibly maybe even got hurt or could have gotten hurt. And these are the youth we are saying we want to empower and liberate, so that the next election when it comes by, we are not going to have such chaos. So we need to not politicize each and every aspect. Matters of security, irregardless, because they are cousins and brothers in Kondele whom we need to see prosper, not just now, but also even after the election. So how do we ensure the safety of each and every Kenyan? If we start tolerating pockets and saying, oh, Kondele is hostile for Sido, Nyandarua is hostile for Kamanya, what are we trying to dissect this country into? That should not be tolerated.
That's exactly my question.
Exactly. And on the same veil, as we take photos of vehicles that have been purportedly been broken, we should also take photos of those young people that we are saying probably got hurt and post and say, this is how people got hurt. A vehicle will not speak, but men and women, young people will continue to live in pain and say, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya came here and my own brothers stoned me, and this is who I am. But Linda, to your question, what do you do with intelligence? The Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya is not like Muisa Kitui, if I probably could say that. When the DP is going to a place, it is prearranged.
Yes.
Over 8 months.
Yes.
I have friends of mine who planned this visit. They have been working on it since July last year. In fact, the DP should not have been to Kisumu other than this holiday we had until when he went. And even this one should not have happened. It only happened because he happened to have been in Nyamira. And Nyamira Kisumu is not more than 120 kilometers, and so he showed up. But these wonderful people have been working on it, na hata wao wenyewe wamekosana. And they said, these UDA people are not accommodative. Our own laws are fighting us within UDA, so we defect. And within that planning of the visit, most of them also left UDA. But what I'm saying is that the intelligence around this visit was too much, because they have been working on it. The people who were mobilized to attend, they knew, and they had prepared them, and they already explained to them when the DP is coming, where he will go to, who will speak, what they will say, when he will go to Kondele, and how the people are expected to behave. The meeting went on very, very well, until when you realize from the video that I have seen doing rounds against what is on the ground, is until when some pockets of groups of people felt that, for instance, the DP was speaking and they were not seeing anything being left for them, you know. And they said what I just said, if you don't give us anything, we will stone you. That is purely what happened. But the mobilizers, no. In fact, if you send them to go and pick the guy who threw the stone, they will get you the person. Because Kondele is a place where you will not go and live as a stranger. One, the community policing aspects within Kondele, given the experience that people have gone through. So the communities there, they know themselves. They are very closely and neatly knit together. You know, they know so and so is Mama Mboga, who is Josphat's mother. Josphat's mother goes to the market at this point. Ikifika sanane, she goes back home to cook for the children. The brother comes to start selling the vegetables. They know how they have lived together. So what therefore you do with that particular kind of intelligence, because that is really what it is. There is nobody will go to that place without being mobilized, unless you are some idler who apparently just happened to be there. So what therefore the Deputy President's team, in my view, should be able to do is to help Kenyans. I'm looking forward to maybe ODM and UDA sitting together and saying, how are we supposed to deal with this kind of scenarios? Because
true
it
to
will happen
it-
to any other leader in
Yeah.
any part of this country. Yeah. So let's also build on the kind of intelligence that we receive. And because campaigns have not started, you know,
Yeah, it's not been declared by
IEBC has not
yes.
declared this has not blown the whistle.
Right.
But we are already doing, you know, this kind of nasty practices. What if April is here and now we have 3 months, 90 days for campaigns? Are we going to be killing each other left, right and center in this country?
And I mean, I agree. The buck stops with the leaders themselves and their team. I mean, at what point then do we stop this scenario where when it's happening, when you know the people of Kondele celebrate and hail you, you do not thank Right Honorable Raila Odinga for the same. But that moment when it happens otherwise, you are up there saying that it is him. And instead of Right Honorable Raila Odinga then coming in to, you know, just address this in the most amicable way, again, he proceeds to fire shots. You know, it leaves us in a point of fear, to be honest. What will it take for them to sit down, or if not sit down, at least have an amicable way of making sure that it is not going to be about them, that this chaos then would culminate?
I don't think they need to sit down, Linda, and hopefully the viewers and Kevin can agree with me. Because this process is not about Chief Hustler and Raila Amolo Odinga. This process is about Kenyans. It is about mutual respect. They need to know, all the candidates, and I keep saying all the way down from MCA up top to the president, that we are seeking positions to serve the people. Therefore, we are not superior to the people. It is the people to decide whom they want to have in office. And on that premise, we need to approach people with respect, decorum, and humility, so that the people can get to have a chance to listen and decide whom they want. This is the gospel we need to start preaching now. Let us not be on the negative side and saying it's going to get bad, they are fighting, it's up to them. It is not up to any of the leaders, myself included. It is about the people. So it is upon us to subject ourselves to the people respectfully. When we are going for these rallies, when the campaigns are on, let us congregate and differ on ideas, and differ on ideologies, and differ on the vision. Provide your manifesto, people will accept you, others will reject you. At the end of the day, the majority are going to have their way.
All right.
And the minority need to be respected in having their say. And the first way of allowing this and fostering these ideas is tolerance during this campaign as we approach the campaign season.
One of the things we are doing at County Governance Watch is through the Aspirants Academy, is that we are moving on to even having discussions and trainings on non-violent campaigns. And one of the things we are asking the aspirants is to sign a peace pact, that your campaign will be peaceful, and that if there is any form of violence, you as an individual will be held accountable. And being held accountable includes the fact that we can be able to mobilize resources to campaign against you because you're not a peaceful leader. Number two, your own political party, if you are vying through a political party, has to take responsibility so that your leaders should be able to ask you what happened. What role did your people play? Can you, so that this issue, for example, is not about the deputy president and the former prime minister. It has also to go down, as Josephat is saying, to the people themselves. And then lastly is the institutions. For instance, the National Cohesion and Integration Commission has told us there are certain parts of this country that are going to be, hotspots for the elections. Are we just mapping them out and leaving it at that point? What are we doing beyond just looking at what is happening and also engaging communities? Because some of these people are making a lot of noise and bringing in chaos, but they're not probably even voters for those particular regions. It could be somebody who traveled from Busia just to come and see the deputy president.
That's true.
And he's so frustrated that he didn't see my face to give me some little coins here and there. So why don't I mess up this rally? But he's not even a member of that particular region. So the institutions of government also have to come forward, and the political party leaders also have to be willing to engage with these institutions so that the DP should not be too fast to instigate and bring in Mheshimiwa, the former prime minister, on this issue. The matter should actually be deflated back to the IG and DCI for investigations, because as I told you, if you ask these order mobilizers to get you the person who threw the stone, they will get that person. Why don't we take that discussion there And then I still emphasize that leaders need to speak to each other, because sitting together means that they're also giving us an example on how the citizens are supposed to engage at their level.
Well put. Gentlemen, thank you so much for speaking to us this morning. I know these are conversations that we continue to have, and we all are in agreement that it's on rare occasions you'll see very young kids, even though nowadays you find 2, 3 of them, and the oldest taking part in this. It is the youth. And so we need to speak to ourselves and get to understand that this nation belongs to us. And therefore, in as much as it could be about a presidential candidate, preferred for that matter, it is by and large about all of us as a people of Kenya. It was good having you, Josephat Kamanya, political analyst, and governance expert Kevin Osido. On that very note, we close this conversation as I look forward to see you another time. We get into full-time entertainment now, all the way to 9 a.m. So 10 a.m. actually. So make sure that you keep it right here. I already have a person who's going to get the cake in the name of Sonny Ray Kamau, who says, "Hey Linda, and Fredia, good morning. My name is Sonny, watching from Zimmerman Estate. My little sister's birthday is on the 16th, and I would like to surprise her with a cake because she means so much to me. Please, can I have one?" You certainly have one this morning, Sonny. And so I have sent you a message. Kindly get back so we are able